Okay, let's talk about something super frustrating. Have you ever dealt with a stubborn mold issue? You clean one spot and then it just seems to pop up somewhere else entirely, a place that doesn't even seem wet. It can drive you crazy. What if I told you the problem isn't just the spot you can see, but invisible highways running through your entire building? This is such a classic head scratcher. You find mold up in the attic, you call a roofer, and they tell you the roof is perfectly fine. But the mold is definitely there. So what gives? This is the exact mystery we're going to solve today. And the answer, well, it lies in understanding how your building actually breathes. Most of us think of a building as just a big static box. And if there's mold, it's just the stationary problem that stays put. But that's not how it works at all. Your home or your office is a really dynamic system with these powerful and visible air currents constantly moving around. And they can act as a transportation system for things you'd rather keep contained. So what's driving all this movement? Well, there's a powerful principle of physics at play here. It acts like an invisible engine inside your walls, constantly pushing and pulling air from the very bottom to the very top. Let's break down what that engine actually is. It's called the stack effect. And what's so fascinating is that the driving force is incredibly simple. It's just the difference in temperature between the inside of your house and the outside. This one effect is the primary engine behind that invisible airflow we've been talking about, and it's happening in most buildings, pretty much all the time. So here's the play-by-play, especially when it's cooler outside. First, warm air inside, which is lighter, rises up, just like in a hot air balloon. Second, it starts looking for any way to escape at the top. Think about little gaps around recessed lights, wiring holes, things like that. Third, as that air escapes, it creates this tiny vacuum, this negative pressure, down at the lower levels. And finally, nature hates a vacuum, so air from the lowest parts of the building, like your basement or crawl space, gets pulled right up to replace the air that left. And what's the result of all this? You get this continuous loop. Your entire house is basically acting like one big invisible chimney, constantly drawing air from the bottom and shooting it out the top. Okay, so an invisible chimney of air is one thing. But what happens when that air isn't so clean? This is where that chimney becomes a contamination superhighway. Right, so if you've got a moisture problem or some mold already growing down in that basement or crawl space, the spores don't just hang out down there. They're microscopic and they get sucked right into that upward moving air. They travel through all these hidden highways inside your walls, the spaces around pipes, inside the wall framing, around your ducts and wiring. They go everywhere. So, the really crucial point here is that this isn't just some random fluke. It's a constant process. As the source material puts it, this upward draft is always sampling the air from the lowest level of your home and delivering it to the highest levels, spores and all. Okay, so we've got this contaminated air rising up through the building. Where does it all end up? Well, the destinations are often the very places we'd never suspect are connected to a problem that started downstairs. Your attic becomes the final stop for this column of warm, humid, and now potentially spore-filled air. And when that warm, moist air hits the cold surfaces in the attic during winter, like the underside of your roof, you get condensation. So now you've got water, you've got spores, and just like that, you've got a brand new mold problem. This is exactly why that attic mold mystery is so common. We instinctively blame a leaky roof, right? It's the usual suspect. But so often, the real culprit is this internal air leakage, the stack effect, carrying a problem from the foundation all the way to the top floor. It was never about water coming in from the outside. And it's not just the attic. The empty spaces inside your walls, they're perfect vertical channels. Air can sneak in at the bottom plate and travel straight up, carrying moisture and contaminants along for the ride. This explains why sometimes you see issues on a second floor that seem to have no direct water source nearby. And to make things even more complicated, your HVAC system can basically act as an amplifier for this whole process. Think about it. Leaky return ducts can literally suck that contaminated air from a basement and then blow it all over the house. A poorly balanced system can actually make the pressure differences that power the stack effect even worse, making the whole contamination process more efficient. So now that we get the transport system, it becomes really clear why just cleaning the mold you can see on the surface is, well, it's often just a temporary fix that's pretty much doomed to fail. Look, if you only treat the mold in the attic, you've completely ignored the engine and the source of the problem. That damp cross space keeps making spores, and the stack effect keeps delivering them upstairs. It's a guarantee that the cross-contamination is just going to happen all over again.
This is exactly why a simple surface inspection often misses the real story.
The only way to really solve this is to stop looking at it as just a spot on the wall and start looking at the building as a whole system. A truly effective assessment has to combine moisture detection with an understanding of these pressure dynamics and all those hidden airflow pathways. This quote from the source material just sums it all up perfectly. Having this knowledge completely transforms the entire process. It's the difference between, say, painting over a symptom and actually curing the disease because you understand how the whole system is working together. So the next time you see a mysterious moisture stain or a patch of mold, don't just look at the spot. Ask yourself, what's the bigger story here? Could that invisible engine inside my walls be transporting a problem from somewhere I can't even see? It's a question that might just lead you to the real solution.